Hey guys, Jeremy from Dragon's Breath Glassworks again. I had mentioned I was going to talk more about about jacks in my last video for this one. So I want to talk. I only have two different manufacturers of jacks here with me. I don't have any Carlo Dano or Maruco jacks that I would love to show you, but I want to talk specifically about my new jacks from Cutting Edge. They are his tweeners. I just got them, so I'm going to kind of do a review on them. I was really hesitant to get them based on some things I had heard about the stiffness of the spring, and I think that that's probably not the right complaint with those jacks. So I'll talk a little bit about those, but I want to show you some different jacks first. So these are the main tools that we use, and I've got a few different styles here. So right here we've got 3 pair of Jim Moore jacks, and these are some real budget models. These are, I've always called this style of jack a strap jack, because you make the entire handle and spring out of a single strap, and then you add the blades. I think Jim calls these wire jacks, but I'll leave a link to both Jim Moore and Cutting Edge in the description of this video if you want to look closer at these tools. I don't like these. I've used them. I understand what they're for. I bought them specifically for one of my assistants that I was teaching how to blow glass. He needed a cheap pair of jacks, and it didn't matter if he abused. Neither of us could really use them well. They're fine. Some people do love them. John really likes these. They work well for him and the way he holds jacks. If you have strength issues in your right hand, either because you just have a weakened right hand or you are left-handed, these can be a good option. Because they have very little resistance in the spring, so they might be a good option in that scenario. John likes it because he's left-handed. So here we have the Jim Moore Smalls. These are in relatively good shape. These are John's. He's let me use these to show them to you. There's not a whole lot to say about these. The spring in Jim Moore's is pretty mild, so they don't resist you a lot. If you're going to be working all day long, the Moores have a nice soft spring, which means you're not going to get hand fatigue from using them. They have a pretty narrow resting position on the blades, so if you really need to open them wide to work on something, you kind of have to push the blades open if you're working on larger pieces. The answer there is just to use larger jacks. That's the appropriate thing to do, but sometimes you use the tool you have on hand. Like all jacks, the handle and spring are, generally speaking, the same material. These are a piece of spring steel that has been folded over to make the handle, and then the blades are brazed in. Jim Moore does replace his blades. If you ask him to, you can send your jacks in, and you can pay him to replace the blades, which is good since they're just mild steel. They tend to wear down faster than blades from Carlo Dano or from Cutting Edge or Maruco or a place like that. So these blades can wear out if you are not careful and if you use them really aggressively on colder jack lines. A good example of that are my Jim Moore standards. These are my 9-inch jacks, and as you can see, they have some sweet spots that have been worn in over the years. I use these pretty much exclusively for pumpkins at this point, where I really bear down hard on the jack lines. They've been pretty heavily abused. When I need to make something that needs a tighter, more controlled jack line, I have to do it all the way up here, where you don't generally do that. They're made the same way as the smaller size, with that single piece of spring steel that's been folded over with the blades brazed in. Which brings me to my new jacks from Cutting Edge. I wasn't sure what to think of these when I first started using them. I've been using them for a couple weeks now. I have some complaints and some really minor things. A couple problems I was able to take care of myself, and it's really just about my own personal ergonomics and what works in my hands. Someone else might have a totally different experience. I've always been told that the spring is really stiff on the Cutting Edge jacks, and it is a bit stiffer than the Moores, but I didn't feel like it led to hand fatigue, which was my main concern. But really what I was not expecting was the thinness of the handle. And while they don't look a lot thinner than the Moores, you can tell a lot more on the back strap how much thinner they are, and which is one reason they are a stiffer spring, is because that back strap is narrower, and you can see it's a good quarter inch or so narrower. I'm not sure if you can see that right there. But what that translates into is also a narrower handle, not just the back strap. And for me, with my large palms and short fingers, what that meant was every time I squeezed the jacks, my skin would roll up into the handle and pinch, and that was really uncomfortable. I was getting discomfort and getting rubbed raw, and I'm sure in a few months I would have developed a callus and it wouldn't have been a problem, but that became an issue. I just wrapped some Gorilla Tape around there, and that made it nice and soft in the hand. That completely fixed that problem. What I really do love about the cutting edge jacks, though, is that broader blade profile. It's broad all the way down, unlike the Moors, which you can see taper more sharply. This gives you a very different feel when opening pieces, especially larger pieces. Even the large Moor jacks tend to have this more sharply tapered blade, and so this broader taper makes it feel very differently when you're opening a piece. I put a lot of drop feet and cookie feet on my pieces, and using these blades to stretch and even out those feet is a lot easier than it is on the Moor jacks. My one issue with these that is strictly a manufacturing issue, and it leads to these being handmade tools, or rather it comes from these being handmade tools, is the fact that, I'm not sure how well you can see this, but these blades do not meet at the tip. They're slightly different shapes, and the tips are not the same length. I have not had a chance to get a hold of Jeff over at Cutting Edge and ask him about this. I'm sure if I sent him back in, they'd take care of it. Jeff is a really easy guy to work with. So that is a minor concern. You can also see that the profile at the tip is a little bit different. This is more rounded, and this is more angled right there. And so that can have an effect if you're trying to use the tips of these to shape the piece. You really shouldn't be just shaping with the tips. But if you were trying to treat these like goblet jacks, they would not do very well for you in that situation. So that's basically it. As far as would I recommend these to someone or not, these again are as tweener jacks, and I would if you have hands that can handle these okay. I think they are fine. They are not my favorite jack I've ever used, but they were readily available at a good price. I do like them. I'd be interested in holding one of his pair of large jacks. I haven't actually held one of his large jacks to feel the spring in those, but I would recommend these. I'd give them maybe a 4 out of 5. But as far as price for value, I honestly have to say the Moors might be a better deal. They are a more comfortable jack, at least for me to hold, and while that more sharply tapered blade is not the greatest, for the value, for the price, I think that these are a slightly better jack. I do like my new cutting edge jacks, and my opinion may change over time once I see how they take blade wear. But that's where we go. If I had to make a choice and buy another pair of jacks right now, I'd probably go with another pair of Moors. All right, folks. I hope that was helpful. If you do have questions, feel free to message me or leave a comment. Thanks a lot. I hope you have a great day.